Hello, welcome to the Security Update with me, Hamse Daabjeerin. In this program, we will be covering for you the latest stories that matter security in the African countries, from West to Horn of Africa. Ahead on the program, Banadi Regional Police Chief survives from explosion. Somalia National Army say they destroyed Al-Shabaab bases in Lower Shabelle region. Violence in South Africa over Zuma jailing. France to close military bases in northern Sahel by 2022. Welcome to the program. At least 5 people confirmed dead and more others injured after an explosion happened in Mogadishu. The security forces said the regional police chief were among the survivors of the attack. The Banadi Regional Forces confirmed that Mogadishu Police Commissioner Farhan Qorole survived an attack in Mogadishu on Saturday after an explosion targeting his convoy occurred. Residents said a plume of black smoke could be seen blowing from the scene. Speaking to the media, Somali police spokesman Sadiq Aden said 4 people, including the guards of the police post, died in the attack. 9 other people were also wounded. The explosion destroyed vehicles and other properties in the street and left the death of at least 5 people, while others wounded. Al-Shabaab group claimed responsibility for the attack, saying their target was the Mogadishu police post. This new Mogadishu police chief was appointed in April after his predecessor was fired over his unilateral decision to suspend the parliament session in Mogadishu. For the past few days, there has been fighting between the Somali National Army and Al-Shabaab fighters in some parts of southern Somalia. The federal forces said they have demolished a military base belonging to Al-Shabaab in Lower Shabelle. The federal government troops conducted military operations in some parts of the Lower Shabelle region. According to government officials, the operations, which lasted a few hours, aimed to weaken Al-Shabaab fighters who have hideouts in the area. Danab Forces, a Somali commando task force, conducted these military operations in Mara'ate and Galka Salim, where they eventually claimed they had destroyed a strategic military base belonging to Al-Shabaab in the Lower Shabelle region. The regional authorities said that this base the group used to collect money from the people. Al-Shabaab has neither accepted nor denied this claim by the federal government. For the past few days, there has been a counter-attack between the Somali National Army and Al-Shabaab fighters in some parts of the southern Somalia. The Amazon and Somali National Army on several occasions said they will remove the group out of the country, but Al-Shabaab still remains effective and conducts operations, explosives and assassinations in Somalia. According to Puntland authorities, Daesh fighters in Puntland state of Somalia have lost control of some of its strongholds. Casualties of both sides have been reported, though the group did not say about this incident. Puntland state of Somalia's armed forces said they have captured new locations from Daesh fighters after a gun battle between the two sides. The regional security forces highlighted the strategic importance of these mountainous hideouts. Casualties of both sides have been reported, though the exact number of deaths and injuries were not revealed formally. The Puntland forces stated that these areas were an important hideout for the group and would make it easier to weaken them militarily. Some of the regional authorities said the military operations will not be limited to these mountainous war zones, but will be continued until they remove the group from the remaining areas anytime soon. Puntland is one of the states that have 2 most rival groups against the federal government of Somalia, Al-Shabaab and Daesh, establishing military bases to plan and conduct their future attacks in central Somalia and Puntland state itself. The regional authorities of Gather region called on the public to restore peace and avoid involving the recurrent clan conflicts. The inter-clan clashes become common in the area, while the federal government of Somalia has started peaceful efforts to restore security in the region. The Gather region of Somalia has been mirrored in uncertainty since the outbreak of inter-clan conflicts. Residents reported that the situation is starting to return to normalcy. Some of the regional authorities advised the 2 warring sides to hold fighting or they will be prosecuted. Both the regional and federal government officials have not revealed the exact casualties, but residents believe the fighting left various casualties, including death and loss of other personal properties. The federal government also advised the traditional elders in the region to begin to restore peace and security between the two sides. The cause of this conflict is rooted in a dispute of farming land which each side claims the ownership. Hundreds of people fled from their residential homes after peace efforts brokered by the elders and the regional administration completely failed. This is not the first time such an incident happened in this area. It had experienced similar incidents. The interclan clashes become common in the area while the federal government of Somalia has started peaceful efforts to restore security in the region. A horrific attack occurred in Mudug region of Galmudug state of Somalia in which a family members were brutally murdered by unknown gunmen. Residents demand a speedy trial on this case by the regional authorities. Unidentified gunmen have shot dead a father and his two children on the outskirts of Mudug region in Galmudug state of Somalia. The regional security agencies identified the father of the children as Hassan Diria Walid Ilmi. Initial reports say the father and his children were at their residential home when they were attacked by the perpetrators armed with an AK-47 rifles. No group has officially claimed the responsibility of this murder. Residents confirmed the mother of the house was not present at the home by the time the incident occurred, though CBA cannot independently verify on this matter. The residents also demand a speedy trial on this case by the regional and federal authorities anytime soon. This is not the first time such an attack has happened in the region. Sometimes unidentified gunmen attack in the region and later escape from the scene. For the last months, Galmudug security officers made an effort to maintain the security of the region and Galmudug state at large, as well as urged the community to stop the interclan clashes. This week, South Africa police made 28 related arrests as one of the country's biggest highways closed over violent protests against the imprisonment of the former President Jacob Zuma. But we will be back after the short break.
Hello out there. Tune in to CBA TV, the voice of East Africa and beyond. There's so many people around the world who are watching along with you. Welcome again. This week, South Africa police made 28 related arrests as one of the country's biggest highways closed over violent protests against the imprisonment of former President Jacob Zuma.
The South African police has confirmed the death of at least 72 people, while 1,234 others have been arrested during the ongoing unrest in the country. The unrest was sparked by the imprisonment of former President Jacob Zuma last week. Major General Mathapelo Peters said many of the deaths were caused by stampedes of people when shops were being looted. Thousands of people have stolen food, electronic appliances, alcohol, and clothing from retail centers. Vehicles have been burned, businesses vandalized, and debris left strewn across roads. The army was called in on Monday to contain the violence in South Africa on the fourth day of violence initially triggered by the imprisonment of former President Zuma.
Now we are in a situation where people have to go into stores and destroy, take everything and put law on their hands. It's not a good thing. It's very bad. It's very, very bad. And as a result, it means there's a lot of people who are going to lose their job.
I think the government now, since they've deployed soldiers and stuff, they should do this thing peacefully. Nobody must be shot or beaten or brutalized. People need to reason and talk with people nicely so we calm the situation down.
We knew when we locked down again, this was bound to happen, because the longer you leave the people hungry, this events would take place. And I don't think it's only about the whole economy and what's happening on there. I think people are genuinely hungry.
Incident broke out on Friday in Zulu country, where Mr. Zuma is originally from and where he was imprisoned after being sentenced to 15 months for contempt of court. Since then, the unrest has spread to poorer areas of Johannesburg, where Mr. Zuma's fate is largely irrelevant. President Cyril Ramaphosa has since appealed to South Africans to consider the consequences of their actions. Kalmatadik, CBA TV.
Property has been destroyed, cars have been stoned, people have been intimidated and threatened, and some have even been hurt. I even heard that some people may have died. These acts are endangering the lives of people and damaging our efforts to rebuild the economy.
The Somalian security forces tightened security in Mogadishu. The security forces have not disclosed why security was being tightened, but it seems to be part of its efforts to maintain security in the region. For the past hours, Somalia security forces have started to tighten security in Mogadishu, the capital city of Somalia. The security forces conducted the operation in several districts and checkpoints in the region. The operation, which seems to be a part of Somalia's efforts to maintain security in the region, is being scrutinized by public and private vehicles, as well as questioning the suspects. Somalia security forces urge the public to give a hand with the police to mitigate future terrorist attacks. This comes at a time the country prepares for general elections within these coming 3 months, and there are accusations that the government has been slow to respond to security issues. Al-Shabaab, a rival group that wants to overthrow the federal government from power, pledged they will destabilize the election process. Somalia army forces and Al-Shabaab fighters have been fighting in some parts of the southern Somalia in recent days. French President Emmanuel Macron has disclosed that France will close all military bases in the Sahel region by 2022 as part of its recognition of the country's military engagement in Africa.
Elle se traduira par une réduction de nos empreintes militaires les plus au nord.
French President Emmanuel Macron has disclosed that France will close all military bases in the Sahel region by 2022 as part of its reconfiguration of the country's military engagement in Africa. Macron announced the military drawdown, including a reduction of troops and the closure of bases during a news conference with the Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum at the end of a G5 Sahel summit in Paris. The transition is necessitated by the end of France's Operation Barkhane in the Sahel, which Macron announced last month. Macron noted further that the overall will involve the reduction of France's northernmost military footprint in Mali starting in the coming weeks and will be completed by the beginning of 2022. France has troops in Kidal, Tessalit, and Timbuktu that will be gradually declared. Eventually, there will be between 2,500 to 3,000 troops in the region, down from the current strength of 5,001. Macron reiterated that even a reduced presence, France remains committed to the Sahel upon request from states in the region. Meanwhile, analysts have warned that the insurgent threats in the 5 Sahel countries could lead to increased terror threats in countries including the Ivory Coast and Benin Republic.
Somalia state-owned media confirmed that riots in South Africa claimed the lives of 4 Somalian nationalists who are believed to be shop owners. Other injuries have also been reported as more details emerged. South Africa mirrored in uncertainty since protests erupted last week in parts of KwaZulu-Natal, Zuma's home province, after the ex-leader handed himself over to police to serve a 15-month jail term for contempt of court. The Somali state-owned media reported that these riots left the death of 4 Somali nationalists and 2 others were seriously injured. 1 Somali nationalist is still missing, and around 20 shops owned by Somali nationalists looted in South Africa's arrests in the past 72 hours. Protests erupted last week in parts of KwaZulu-Natal, Zuma's home province, after he handed himself over to police to serve a 15-month jail term for contempt of court. Last Friday, the High Court dismissed Zuma's application to have his arrest overturned in a case that has been seen as a test of the rule of law in the post-apartheid nation. Zuma's imprisonment has laid bare deep divisions in the governing African National Congress, ANC, as a party faction remains loyal to the former president and has been a potent source of opposition to his successor, Ramaphosa. In a move aimed at restoring cultural park to the state, Rwanda is at the request of Mozambique, set to deploy 1,000 soldiers to help the country contain the worsening fires in the gas-rich northern Cabo Delgado.
Last month, the Southern African Development Community authorized the distribution of joint forces in order to assist Mozambique in its fight against a militant insurgency that has left thousands dead and millions displaced. Now, Rwanda is not part of the 16-member SADC. However, its soldiers will fight alongside Mozambique's forces and SADC troops. The Rwandan contingent is made up of members of the police force and troops trained to deal with terrorism and security-related issues. Known locally as Al-Shabaab, the ISIS-linked fighters whose origins are soaked in local political, religious and economic discontent have steadily increased in the province since October of 2017. The militants have been in control of the key port town of Mukimboda prior since August of 2020, and in March they launched a coordinated assault on Palma town, killing dozens and displacing tens of thousands, while also forcing the French energy firm Total to suspend its $20 billion LNG project. Thousands of soldiers have been deployed to the region. However, Mozambique army has a history of being weak, poorly trained and under-equipped.
And with that story of Rwanda, at the request of Mozambique, set to deploy 1,000 soldiers to help the country contain the worsening violence in the gas-rich northern Cabo Delgado. We'll wrap up our program for this time. Thank you very much for being with us. This is me, Hamse Daabjeerin.